That's a tough one to say fast.
Well, something like, hi, I'm Shira Shamban, the CEO of Solvo, and you're listening to the Disco Posse podcast.
Thing of beauty. you nailed it on the first try. Excellent. And with that, we begin. So Shira, thank you very much. This is really, really cool because I've been digging into the background of you, your company, and both have an incredible amount of interesting topics to cover. So thank you very much for joining today. Uh, and for folks that are new to you, I think the best thing to do, if you want to just introduce yourself, tell us quickly a bit about Solvo, and then we'll dive into. We'll start with kind of what the problem is you're solving, and then we'll go out from there because I know we've got a lot of really great stuff that I know you can cover.
Perfect. So hi, everyone. Great to be here. And thank you, Eric, for having me. I'm Shira, the CEO of Solvo. I started Solvo with my co-founder, David, after we worked together in another cloud security company named Dome9. In Dome9, we got to learn about different problems in the cloud security domain. We thought we got them all covered. But as we started digging in a little more, we realized that we're now mature enough as cloud users to start facing new problems or problems that in the past we didn't have the capacity to start handling. And Solvo is here to actually make the cloud a non-issue from the security perspective, starting on the left side where the developers are actually starting to cause some mess, and to make sure that our applications make it safely and securely to production.
It's funny when we have this, and I've seen the phrase, and I've heard it. We more and more here. We talk this idea of shift left, and the idea that get in front of the delivery of code, and it is interesting that we're able to now, but we haven't been for a long time. And I'm curious as to get your sense of why now is the right time where we can actually become effective at that stage in the build and deploy lifecycle.
Well, I think that the world is shifting towards software centric products. Even, the medical industry, medication or research used to be about chemistry and physics, and today it has a lot to do with software. Think about the new COVID-19 vaccines. They came using breaking the mRNA of that virus. So it has a lot to do with software. Software is a central part of our products, of our services that we consume. So now that we understand that, this is the center of many things that we use, we also understand that actually many problems that we wanted to solve, it's like something hurts you and you want to solve only the pain, but now we're actually starting to dig in and to understand where is the pain coming from. And a lot of security pains are coming from where the product evolved. It evolved with the first lines of code that were written. And this is why it's the right time to start solving security problems, or instead of solving them, just preventing them as early as possible. This is why we decided to work with developers as early as possible to make the cloud a safe place for us to scale.
It's interesting because we've always talked about the DevOps as a methodology, and it became strong in the past few years. And I can't even remember how far back it goes now. But it's funny that at some point someone referred to this idea of DevSecOps, and they said, "Why do you have to explicitly say sec in there?" I said, "Because no one explicitly put security in the life cycle. That's why." We missed it. We have to say it explicitly.
We talk about it a lot. I think about it when you drive. You want to make it from point A to point B. You don't think about, let's drive safely to that place. But this is like something that you do as a part of driving. And we expect developers to do security as a part of delivering code. And we expect the DevOps engineers to give them the guardrails to help the software to be delivered securely to places. But unfortunately, it's not yet a part of our culture. Security has a lot to do with culture. And if you go and look at the curriculum of computer science degrees, you will not be finding a lot of secure development or cybersecurity in general, courses. Maybe there is like one cybersecurity course. It sounds really awesome, but then they only talk about very high level stuff and not about how to create a secured software.
Yeah, it's neat that you bring this up, because I think a lot of what we're doing now, the challenge we bump into is that we are effectively a generation behind on influencing today's actions, because they've come through the influence of the school systems and the current practices. And I remember when I went to school, the world was using C and they were still teaching Turing, and then they moved on to Java and then they were teaching C. And so wherever the world was, the universities were 5 to 8 years behind, because no one could build a consistent, testable, and proven curriculum, because they didn't know if it was going to stick. So I understood at that time, but now the world moves much, much faster, right?
Universities are, at least, in my perspective, are a little behind. They're always a little behind. But this generation, on the other hand, has any content they want, over on YouTube, Udemy, you name it, it's there. The only thing you have to do is go and grab it. So this is why I think that, for example, I think that many university students also participate in OWASP meetups and capture the flags events, because
Right.
they understand that they have to be relevant to the industry and not to the university. That is, if they want to work in the industry and not become researchers and professors in the university.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think the access to information even questions more the relevance of the traditional educational system, because the world is not only already ahead but rapidly accelerating, and the access to information is good. However, like the fundamentals of folks that are doing the research and the learning methodologies, I think that's what's still super important about the school system. It's just that when you get out, year one, getting out of school is going to be a real, turn of events for a lot of people as they take those first jobs and
Mhm.
get dropped in, and then especially when you're writing code, like there's no license to write code. There
Yeah.
very certainly isn't a security check to write code.
True. Very often I get asked, how do you get into cybersecurity? Or do you have to learn to code in order to work in cybersecurity? So maybe this is a good chance to say something about this to our audience. There isn't one path to become a software engineer. There isn't a one path to get into cybersecurity. It all depends on what do you want to do. Do you want to be a security analyst, or do you want to be a DevSecOps engineer? These are two very different things to do. And really, the most important thing to do is to start sniffing around and working with your hands. Like if you're all about, I don't know, reverse engineering, go to GitHub, find an interesting project and reverse it. There's so many tutorials out there on Medium or anywhere else. Just look for how to reverse engineer something, and start doing it yourself with zero knowledge. Start working with your hands. You will get the hang of it, and you will also be able to understand if this is something you want to further explore, or maybe you want to try a different domain. So most importantly, go and do it. Document what you do. Have a GitHub account and put your projects over there, because if you don't come with a degree from a university, I think that, at least for me, when I interview people, if they write down their GitHub account, I always check it out. It's a great opportunity for me to see what they do, and not only hear about it, but actually get to see their code, get to see their projects, get to see how curious they are. So this is a great opportunity for you to show potential employers who you are.
This is funny, because we hear often about the developer interview, and the sort of horrifying stories of the, I don't want to pick on Google, but that name is often attached to some of the most challenging interview processes, and people really struggle through them. And I remember I did a whiteboard interview as an ops person one time, and it was working for a large cloud company. And so all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, you've got a whiteboard behind you, and so what I want you to do," and like literally the person's on the other end of the phone, and he says, "I want you to show me what design you would build for a customer facing cloud environment based on our technologies." I'm like, oh
Okay.
boy. But it was cool because it really put me to the test. And then what I thought was, if I had written that down and saved that, I could actually literally store it somewhere and show that, hey, this is an active architecture that I've done. And this is where this GitHub opportunity is, because you can do what you just said, right? You can explore this stuff. You can try it out. You can do it through a boot camp. You can do it through free meetups, all sorts of great peer opportunities, and then just pop it out there. And
Yep.
people can look and they say, hey, all right, I see you're active, and I don't think people really judge the the code itself as much as they wanted you to see your curiosity. And I like that you picked that up as the thing that you're looking for in somebody.
Yeah, we don't, when we hire, we don't necessarily look for, a degree from an Ivy League university. We don't look for that. We don't, by the way, when we hire, we don't look for any specific technology or coding language that someone has experience in. What we look for is people who are creative, talented, want to solve a problem. We had a problem here recently in a specific domain that none of us had experience in. So we had a new employee on the team, and we told him, listen, here is your new project. We know that you know nothing about that, but we don't know anything either. So go explore, research, and implement. And that's fine.
The other thing as well is not even just sort of the background and the skill set that can be very diverse, and you like that curiosity. We want that, but talk about even your own background growing up in technology and where your origins in your own school. And we think of like these incredible startup scenes all over the world. Obviously, even my own company, we have an office in Tel Aviv, a small
Mhm.
group of developers, but an incredible access to a pool of amazing folks that are local. Then we've got folks that are on the West Coast. We've got some that are on the East Coast. We've got some that are in EMEA. And, so you yourself, have your own background, and you probably have teams and folks around. How do you do the selection when you're looking for somebody new when it comes to geographic and sort of geodiversity?
Right. So for us as a small startup right now, we still look at people. We still want people to show up to the office, even
Right.
during COVID. Except for the times of the lockdown, we wanted people to show up to the office because, again, as a very young startup, those coffee breaks are so important for the product, for the company, for the brainstorming. These are things that, I mean, some things you can do over Zoom, but some things you can't.
Right.
And this kind of building a company and product cannot happen over Zoom, at least in my opinion. So right now we are hiring people who can make it to the office. But generally speaking, I think that we have a pretty good and straightforward recruitment process. We don't give a home assignment. I think it's unfair. Some people get an assignment. They're being told, yeah, this should take 3-4 hours, but actually you're expected to spend a whole week on it.
Right.
This is outrageous, in my opinion. I think that we need to respect our candidates' time. They shouldn't be sitting at home instead of, they're working somewhere else. So in the time that they have over the weekend or in the evening, you can't expect them to be as good as they theoretically could have been in the office. So we don't give a home assignment at all. We don't believe in that. We believe in, having a couple of technical interviews, another personal interview to see that that person has a good fit to the company culture and to the culture that we want to build. Some people are the right people at different stages. Some people we did not hire because we didn't think they had a good social fit for our current status as a very, very small team. But they theoretically could be a better fit when we're 100 employees. So this is our process. It's very straightforward. It's very honest. We don't require, as I said before, a specific experience in a specific coding language. We just look for talented, smart people.
It's neat that you brought up that as well. The idea of at the phase of the company, the hiring will be different. And you've been through different company phases yourself in your own past. And I've heard, I remember the first time I actually heard the phrase that I'm sure has been attributed to many other places, but it was a great interview with Diane Green. And she said it was important as we looked at the early hires. And she says, because the first 10 hire the next 100. And I loved that phrase just because it was so important. She says, because once you hire the 101st person, you're no longer involved as a founder in impressing upon them the values and culture that you need. It has to have been impressed upon them and carried forward by the first 10 who hired that next group. And so it was neat to hear that. And, now you're at the early phases of this next venture, but you've been through this before. So how do you know when somebody's at the right phase? It's probably not an easy thing.
I can share with you a little secret. David, my co-founder, and I, we in our mind, we wanted to build a very healthy company from day one. We know that we will have tons of trouble coming our way, lots of problems to solve, but we try to do things the right way as much as we can so that we will have less fires to shut down later. And one thing that we did that I think is unusual, and that's unfortunate for very early stage startups, is to take a psychology professional to help us in building the team.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, this is someone who actually accompanies us both in the hiring process and also, when David and I have a challenge that we're not sure how to approach, I always prefer to talk to her about it. If we had a certain situation with a certain employee, and David and I both have a lot of experience managing different types of personas, but the fact that we have experience doesn't mean that we react well in certain situations. So I prefer to talk to her and tell her, listen, this is the situation and this is where we want to be. This is what I want to achieve with that person and with the company. What would be the best way to handle this situation to make sure that we go forward to the place we want to be? We want to help, for example, our employees grow with us to be more professional, learn new things. Even when they're senior engineers, you can always learn new things. You can always have cleaner code. You can learn how to tutor other people. Not everyone has that experience. So, I can come to that person and tell them what I think they should be doing, but maybe I should be talking to them differently about this topic. So we try to talk to her about certain issues and just learn from her experience what would be the best way to react in certain situations.
It takes a lot of humility to do that. It's a tough. It's very. This is very new. I really, really like that you've done this. And it's interesting because most folks, you had me at psychology, right? My own background is I studied a lot of behavioral psychology, and technology was the. People say, how are you good at technology? Easy. I know people. But as a founder and as a leader, you've early on, you've accepted that the best thing you can do is make sure that from the outside in that you're doing the right thing. It's a rarity to find people that understand that this early and are able to accept that and actually make it part of the process, which is I'm really, really proud that you've done that.
There are, on most topics, there are other people who know better than me. Then it would be stupid of me to think that I know best and do whatever I think is the right thing to do and then call them in later and have them fix all the mess I did. I prefer that I talk to the right person for the right situation, be it marketing, sales, or psychology and team building. I prefer to talk to these people and ask them for their advice. At the end of the day, as the CEO, I will make the decision, but I choose to talk to professionals to get their opinion about stuff. And when I make a decision, I will know that I took it based on the wisdom and experience of other people.
There's a lot of other good examples of folks that have, it's the difficulty but importance of doing what you just described, right? And I mean, Ray Dalio, in his
Yeah,
book Principles, very,
Mhm.
yeah, very strong about the idea of, and this is a challenging one, some people don't really like it, is an idea meritocracy. And because the belief, when you hear idea meritocracy, it means that that person doesn't believe they're going to have the idea that wins. It's like, no. It really is literally a group collective. And sometimes you won't, your idea may not be the one that makes it to the next stage. But what's important is, as a group, we do this, and there has to be somebody that has to be able to resolve, choose, decide based on data, but they ultimately have a stronger vote. As the CEO, you have a greater you have a responsibility to the entire organization, to your investors, to your shareholders, to your customers. So
To my
it's
employees as well.
yeah.
They come because they believe in us, that we will take the company and them to good places. So in my mind, I have my employees and my customers all the time. I want my customers to love the product that we make for them, and I want my employees to feel proud of where they work and what they do.
When this incredible business becomes as strong as it will, and you get a successful exit at some point, what I need you to do, Shira, is take this and make this your next startup, is teaching people how to run bloody companies, because it is really, really strong, for you look to the outside. Like, it's even everything you describe of yourself, you want to bring outside in. You have a responsibility to your team and your customers. It is a very rare, like I said, a rare treat to meet somebody who's got that understanding of the impact, and how you can both, you know, make those difficult decisions, but at least be very aware of the impact, and also then be able to relate that to those folks, through an advisor, through you, because unfortunately, human resources today, I know a lot of amazing people in human resources, but many, human resources teams are effectively legal teams, because they're there ultimately to make sure that we are protecting the employees and the organization, in like traditional day-to-day operational stuff.
Yeah. So they don't always look at the team building and the culture building. Yeah, this is true. And, it's up to us to make a difference in our own world.
And so I imagine this also then goes then when you get to your bringing your story to the customers, right? And to, especially in the developer world, because you're tackling two of the most difficult selling areas that most people will understand if they've gotten involved in technology vendors. Is selling to developers is profoundly difficult, because there's so many free options. There's so many, ways that they can think they can get around it. They want to build it versus buy it. And then the second piece is, of course, security. And even worse is then you have to bring those two teams together at a customer and say, I'm going to get your security people and your developer team, to agree on something. And we're going to put code in your code. And then we're going to achieve this together. And most people would say, like, this is welcome to unicorn land. You've found something that's incredibly difficult to do. But so how's the experience for you as you then go into this, into prospective customers, and what's that flow look like as you come to a new person? They say, all right, tell me, Solvo looks really neat. Love this idea. How do I make it part of my day? And what will it do?
So you're absolutely right. This is a challenge. We took a pretty big challenge, but it's only because we believe that this is the right approach when you want to do software security or anything that is related to software, even if it's DevOps. I think you have no choice but to learn how to speak to developers. And when David and I thought about our idea and its implementation, what we had in mind was, let's make a product that developers are not gonna hate. Not hate the product. And the best thing to make them not hate the product is for the product to be transparent and seamless to whichever way they work. So we knew the product has to integrate smoothly, in any way they work, and different organizations work in different ways. The more advanced ones that we ran into are, they told us that their approach is, you build it, you run it. So they give a lot of responsibility to the developers that it is not really about security. It's around the R&D. It's security and DevOps. The developers do that.
Right.
So you have these kind of users or customers, and you have the other ones who say, don't touch the developers, they're so fragile. Let them just write code and we will do everything else you need us to do. And maybe unlike some of the other security products, our approach is not to come from above the developer or the security person and tell them, hey, here's a list of all of your fuck-ups and all the bad stuff you did and all the misconfigurations and all the vulnerabilities we found in your code or in your infrastructure or in your application. Because you have plenty of products that do that. And then the security person goes like, where do I get started? What is, top priority, most risky? And how do I actually resolve that? How do I remediate that? How do I mitigate that? Sometimes it sounds so obvious. Yeah, this is a misconfiguration and you have to fix it. Hey, here's a hard-coded key. It shouldn't be there. Yeah, I know it shouldn't be there, but how exactly would I get access to that place that I wanted to get access to? So they understand they did something wrong, but they don't know how to work around that. So we don't come from above. We come from being parallel to you, or look you in the eyes and tell you, I know you don't know how to do it. Let me do that for you and take that off your plate. Let us help people who need to do security but don't know how to do it. Just do it for them. This is what we had in mind. We wanted to make it really easy for everyone.
I think the empathy in the process is what makes it easier for them to adopt, because you're not coming to them saying that they're wrong. You're saying that they shouldn't have to know this stuff, and let's do this together, where we take the weight of it, and we work in the way that you work, so that you can do what you do best. And it is the right approach for sure, and one where, especially security in general, it's a tough conversation to have with people, because if we go, and I've gone through security reviews, even like fantastic coders, and you find me the greatest coder on any team in the world, and then when they leave the company, I'll find you somebody who says, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm going through all this garbage code, right? Like it's all very subjective, and it achieves the right result. But then when you bring in security, it's an additional challenge that's not in the typical, the part of the brain that works in the very creative developer minds. It often is, security has a different part of the world, of the mind that gets accessed when thinking securely.
And then add to that sometimes you have to go through different audits and compliance checks. And then this is when you really lose your hair.
Yeah.
So how about if we just get it right at the beginning and maintain it, least privileged or secured. And it's really difficult because, some organizations deploy a few times a day, a few times an hour. So they produce tons of new code every day. So it's really hard. So you ran through an audit yesterday. You were compliant yesterday. 1 hour later, I don't know what's going on. And
Yeah, that's all it takes, right? You add a new library, you bring in some third-party code, and then you don't necessarily know. It may not even be in your own control that all of a sudden it is ultimately accessing some piece of NPM or some other product space that's getting brought in that you didn't expect. They just add a library to their repository. It does what they expect it to do, a gem or whatever it's going to be, and it's very easy to do, and it's very easy to bypass that sort of secondary layer of checks that you need to do to make sure that it's secure, meets your practices, and especially when you get to least privileged stuff.
When we started our journey, David and I, we thought that Solvo was going to be a product for developers, a tool for developers. So we didn't even create a UI. We just, we had a CLI, and then our first users really had to use that. And we thought that was just fine. Until we started talking to more security practitioners who actually told us, wait, hold on. This product is actually for us. We use this product because it gives us the ability to govern without having to talk or to have that uncomfortable conversation with a developer. So this is when we thought to ourselves, wait, we should probably get a UI for this and create a visualization for what troubles the security engineers.
The good thing is, at least in the approach you've taken, it's much easier. Well, I'd say not easier. It feels to me like the right path to go is do it programmatically first, and then build an interface and an engagement experience atop of a sound and working underlay. So API first kind of idea, and because it needs to work there first. Handing the greatest charts to an unusable product is not going to be a value to any customer at all, for sure.
Yeah, this is why we, as you said, we started with building the heart of the product and then creating those integrations later on.
When you started and you decided this was a problem that needed to be solved, there's a lot of you have your customers, and you ultimately have a huge partner ecosystem, whether they want to be partners or not. This is also the interesting thing when you take on you're solving problems with cloud security. So especially in the early phase, you're very dependent on the stability of their environment and interfacing to the cloud providers and stuff. So now you're kind of going it alone and building this this beautiful abstraction. And then, as you go to the next phase and you start to work more tightly with those partners, what does that sort of look like? Because I'm always curious when hey, we've got this great problem we're solving, and then you go to a cloud provider and said, by the way, it's because you can't solve it, or it's how does that feel when you're having that first conversation with your a new technology partner?
So luckily, they've been using the cloud for quite some time now, and they understand the gaps. And I think they also understand in a way why the cloud providers decided not to do those things. The cloud providers promised us a stable infrastructure, the shared responsibility model. They say, listen, we're in charge of the bare metals. After that, you go ahead and do whatever you want to do. We will enable you the logs. We will help you with monitoring, but you will have to figure out what do you want to monitor. So this is kind of the cloud vendors approach, and this is why they also embrace security solutions or monitoring solutions, because they know that they need us just like we need them. Security is one of the top priorities for the cloud vendors, obviously. So they really need our help to make their customers feel more comfortable and secure in the cloud. So I think there's this kind of mutual understanding, and then their customers, the people who use the cloud, well, the more mature they are, and the more SolarWinds kind of events happen, I know that I will have business because these things keep on happening, and
Right.
more organizations understand that they have to take care of security, and that it's not enough to have a virtual CISO. They will not take responsibility over this. If you don't give them the budget and the power, they will fail, and you as the CEO or the board will fail in protecting your crown jewels, your customers' information, other secrets that needs to be kept secret, and so on. As for our own customers, I think that, it's not trivial, and I have a lot of appreciation to those people who were willing to take a chance on us. It's not trivial to say, well, I can either, my biggest competitor is do nothing. Many organizations say, well, I'm doing my best. I know I'm not least privileged. I understand that some bad things might happen to me. I will try to work on it next quarter. So do nothing is my biggest competitor right now. And I have to talk them into trying out a new company they've never heard of, that haven't built the credibility just yet. But have two very enthusiastic entrepreneurs running the company, and they believe that we can solve the problem for them. They believe in us, and we feel a lot of appreciation to them, and to the fact that they're giving us this opportunity. They're giving us access to their resources. They sit with us, they go through an onboarding with us, and then give us feedback, and give us lots of feedback about our product and what's missing for them. How can they make better use of it? The upside of it is that we take their feedback and make more features out of that. So we really try to make it worth their while.
The team is the important piece of it, and especially when we look at, as they say, there's 3 T's when it comes to building a startup: is team, TAM, and technology. So team is very obvious in the way that everything you do, and even the way you describe yourself. It's always David and I, my team and I. You're very selfless and sharing the responsibility and the wins in what the organization builds, as well as with your customers. TAM. Well, I don't know what the exact number is, but it has many zeros and many commas. And so there is effectively an unlimited amount of need for security. And it was funny, I worked at a major financial institution, and I'd be, fighting, saying, hey, can I get new keyboards for the team, because our keyboards are broken. And we're like, how much are they? Like $14? Can you maybe share one if you buy one? But then I'd look over and I'd see boxes and boxes of security hardware coming into the data center. I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're like, security's first, right? It's a priority. And because there's 2 reasons you take security as a priority. One, you understand the risk, and you are de-risking the environment, which is the responsibility of every CEO. And number 2, you're on the wrong side of, as you said, like SolarWinds, unfortunately, will be a namesake to, a breach for a while, in the same way that we knew Tylenol was the reason why we have safety caps on our pill bottles. 20 years later, or however long it was, now people don't know that reference anymore. And hopefully 20 years from now, there'll be a very successful SolarWinds on the other side of this challenge that they're facing. But
in this domain, I just feel like today we talk about SolarWinds, but in a couple of months we'll be talking about a whole different company, a whole different hack.
Yeah.
It's a part of life. It's a part of our business.
Yeah. And well, there's a very strong mutual respect among the industry that does make me very happy to be a part of it. I work through my direct team and other folks that I talk to, and nobody sees this as like, oh, all right, here we are, let's take advantage of this opportunity. Like, no, let's make sure that customers have what they need. And, until the SolarWinds team, effectively gets back on their feet and gets through this situation. Not an easy one for sure. And I even warned a lot of my own internal salespeople. And I said, remember that you are one line of code away from being the next SolarWinds, right? Because we have to make sure we are mindful that they got to the situation for whatever reason, but everybody has the opportunity to be in that situation. So be respectful about how you deal with it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of respect in the Infosec community in general. So yeah, no one is making fun of it. No one is taking advantage of it. People are trying to be good colleagues and try to help in any way they can.
And it's neat that you said that. There is very generally the strongest respect at a peer level in the InfoSec community. It's one that I started to go to like B-sides conferences and these other conferences, and I thought, where are these amazing people from? Like I've been going to, VMware user groups and, all these like very technology centric. I went to Linux user groups. I've been in a lot of technology communities. And when I got to B-sides, I was like, this is a beautiful place, because there was everything from human hacking to lock picking to personal productivity to interview helping. And like, it was very diverse, and it was also very open and accepting. I didn't need to have, what size is your environment? There's never a question of what I do. People were just interested in me. And then it was so fun that I gained that incredible respect and interest in that community because of it. And you, of course, you'll be involved in a lot of, InfoSec communities. What's your sense of why they are so, open and understanding that they are effectively in this together?
I think that being a security professional is always tricky, because when everything goes well, nobody really knows it thanks to you or that you have a part in this. But it's enough that you stopped 99% of the hacking attempts, but 1% failed, and someone managed to hack you, then it's all your fault. Everyone is like, staying away from you, and you have to fix it. So I think there is kind of a mutual understanding that we're in this together. And, different security researchers and different companies share IOCs, indicators of compromise with one another. They could have, kept them to themselves, but if each and every one of us keeps the information they have to themselves, we won't be able to grow better, become better. And at the end of the day, I know that maybe it sounds funny, because we're not doctors in the sense that we're not saving lives, but doing information security is very important to our day-to-day life. And most people, the average person watching Netflix has no idea what kind of security efforts are behind that. So I think that this is why there is lots of mutual respect, and also lots of support in this community, because we understand something that people from the outside don't understand.
There's no white hat ops teams, right? There's nobody there. There should be points where you could effectively question. And we talk about, like red team, blue team, methodologies. Like there's a lot of really neat things that I wish would take their roots in this InfoSec community and come over to other areas. Like SREs are kind of designed to be that way, that they think much more in the, the full stack and et cetera. But that's a tough responsibility, which is why I think they have to be very shared in the responsibility internally, and then as a peer community, they share amongst each other, which is pretty cool. I really wish more parts of IT carried that kind of breadth of understanding of how we can help each other.
Yep. At least, again, in the InfoSec communities, there is a lot of mentoring, a lot of, we talk about diversity a lot. There is a big difference between talking and doing, but I think that, the people I know in the community try really hard to mentor, to tutor, to deliver their knowledge to other people and help them start their next job in the industry, or make their first steps in the industry. This was one of the reasons why I started a mentoring project a couple of years ago. I knew that on the one hand, I know many security professionals who are willing to help and mentor. And on the other hand, I only have 24 hours a day. So there are only this many people I can mentor. But how about if I bring the mentors and the mentees and help them, to create a place for them to talk to one another, to find the right match for them. One time I was taking an elevator in the building where I was working, and I saw this lady. She looked familiar. I wasn't sure where I knew her from. So luckily she had a name tag. So I was trying to look at it. I saw their name. It looked familiar. And then she approached me and said, "Hey, you organized that mentoring meetup, right?" And I was like, "Yeah. This is where I know her from." And I asked, "What are you doing here?" She said, "I got my first InfoSec job."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "What? I'm so happy. This is a great story you have to bring back to the community." So we had another meetup, and I had her come as a speaker and share her story with everyone, because these are really the most inspiring stories. Having someone tell their story and how they got their first job. When you look for your first job, you feel like, everyone wants someone to come with experience. How can I get my experience if no one is give me my first opportunity? So she came and she shared her story about how she found her first job, and it was against all odds. She's a mother of 3. She immigrated to Israel. So she had every excuse not to succeed in this. But she decided that this is what she was going to do. And she said that she didn't spend the evenings with her kids because she really wanted to study hard and get ready, prepared, to find that job and to show that she's working hard to get it. And she said, "I know I didn't spend that much time with my kids, but I hope that in the future they will appreciate what their mom did." And anyone else who a young student, what is your excuse? She's a mother of 3. Yeah. What is your excuse? This is my dog trying to get into the room.
Sorry.
I will open the door for her just so that she doesn't.
I love that we have a special guest. It's
very dog-friendly office, and she's our star in the office. So sorry about that little interruption.
That's what makes these things fun. Is that is if someone asked me one time, they're like, so somebody knocked on the door and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna edit that out after." I'm like, no, it's all good. People actually enjoy that more than anything else. When I look especially at what you just talked about, right, the ability to impact people at a very personal level is such a beautiful thing. And that's where I like that you've created a mentoring opportunity for folks. And because we, wherever we are, I say this we as in you and I on camera, but like I know I'm only repeatable so many times, and I've looked for that same thing. And luckily you have same sort of ideas that I looked at who can I bring through this and then introduce them when I'm not available to somebody else who can do that. And when you hear those stories of somebody, it's actually them now doing work with helping to advise a startup, and it's co-founded by somebody who I'd helped out, a couple of years ago. And so it really does come back and make you realize the power we have as people.
Absolutely. One word, one sentence that you tell someone, you have no idea how it's going to affect them. I had a soldier in the past on my team, and I gave her a task. And as a part of the task, she had to call another officer, so a higher rank, and to ask him something. And she was a little shy about calling him because, again, it's a thing of ranks. And I told her, "No, you have to go and call him right now." Going to my office, but I told her, "You keep the door in your office open. I want to hear the phone ringing. I want to hear you calling him." And she called. Everything was fine. Yada yada. Years later, I meet her, and she said, "I'm sure you don't remember this, But thank you so much for pushing me to do that. I will never forget that. And for me, that was like, just an ordinary day, me trying to empower someone to do their job.
Right.
But you really have no idea how much you're going to affect someone's life.
Yeah, it is, it's amazing to see that, and even when you talked before about security, it's a sort of sense that I have to be right all the time. They, the potential intruders only need to be right once. In the same way of, like, when we deal with people and mentoring and running a company and running a team, we need to look for those things where we have to always do the right thing. And then every once in a while, you get these little nuggets where a particularly right thing hops out, and you realize, wow, we do the other stuff, and build those things. And like, if you read the culture code, right, the foundation of the culture code, and one of the top things is not compensation. Like, obviously, those things are very important. They said it's the feeling of the sense of belonging,
Yeah.
and then the ability to fail amongst your peer group successfully. Like, in that, failing and being accepted is the most empowering thing you can do to somebody, because then they know that
There's
they're more free to try again, because otherwise they're going to lock up, they're going to stop doing things. It's a real impact on them in their ability.
absolutely. This is definitely a part of, building the right team and making them feel like they can fail. We're going to support them. I also believe in, post-mortem for good events and for bad events. We need to see what we did and we should keep on doing, and what we could have done differently.
Yeah, it's actually a thing around mental models that I've been studying this week in particular. I say as we're recording, and from a company called Knowable. Actually, I had their founder Warren Schaefer on, and it's just like 10 minutes a day, really neat little blurbs. And the one thing they're talking about, a football coach, it said, we evaluate every play as if it had a life unto itself. And so we want to see it as a beginning, an evolution, and a result, and what created it. And going through those postmortems and looking at every event, you have to sort of separate it from the rest of its surroundings, and do that. And in doing so, you find methodologies and practices and things that you can apply to other situations that ultimately give you vision and values. Like, but that's why the vision statement it's in your soul, not on the back of the wall behind your front desk of your company. It's all great if it is. There's nothing wrong with that. But quite often that's the only place that it really lives, is in the paint on the wall.
Hmm. Before we had our first employee, David and I sat and talked about our company's values. And on the one hand, it felt really weird to talk about it when it's only the two of us. Know that we should talk about it now and not when there is 100 people. And one day I will have a meeting with the entire team, and like share my 10 commandments. I mean, people will feel that it's so disconnected from them. But we talked about the values not as something pretty to hang on the wall, but we nailed it to three things that we believe in, and that whenever there is some kind of decision we have to make, we ask ourselves if, like, based on our values or in light of our values, what is the right decision to make here. For example, if I talk about transparency, then like, if there is something that is on my mind, I have to go and talk about it. If I will not talk about it, then how am I transparent? How am I open to how I can't expect other people to come and talk to me about things that bother them, that trouble them, if I don't do the same. So yeah, values are very important, and you have to know your values.
You could create a Y Combinator for ethical founders. Like, it's just such a beautiful thing. I'm just absorbing it all, because it is, unfortunately, rare in a lot of, it is in humans. And especially as a founder, you have a very diverse set of responsibilities, and it's very difficult to separate in, those things from each other, and also include the empathy, the understanding, the human relations side of the world to the fiduciary responsibility you have to the team, the investors, et cetera, right?
Just imagine if there were more female founders in the world.
That is very true. And this is funny. I struggle sometimes too when, I look at my own podcast, and the numbers are unfortunately telling, they're indicative of a lot of the industry problems, right? I have less female founders on than male founders. And that's, and I never want to say, there's nothing worse than saying like, so can I ask you about your role as a female founder? Like, you're a founder.
Yep.
I don't want to then like, okay, let's make this all about, my wife gets asked all the time, like, hey, can you talk about being a female engineer? And she says, I'm an engineer. I'm also female. That's actually the order that it goes in. She's like, she doesn't want to have the one thing lead in front of the other. However, as a world, I know we definitely do need to be more very, very open about the challenges that folks face, especially in underrepresented communities and such. So
I think that, I mean, I totally understand your wife, and I usually follow that same feeling. I don't go to interviews or talk about me being a female founder. It's not interesting. But generally speaking, I think that that empathy that you mentioned before can be found more in women. I'm not saying that men are not empathetic at all, and I'm not saying that all women are, but this is something you can find more in women. And yeah, unfortunately, there aren't enough of us everywhere, but we're making a difference. I started doing public speaking about 6 or 7 years ago. I was asked to speak at a conference, and I didn't. They asked me to come and talk about cybersecurity. I was already a major in the Israeli intelligence, but I felt like, me speaking about cybersecurity? I mean, there are plenty of other professionals to talk about it. Who am I to be speaking about it to an audience? But then I ran into an article saying that, I mean, the topic was, why aren't there more women in cybersecurity? And the answer was that they just don't have enough female role models in that domain, so they just don't think they can do it because there aren't other women doing it.
right.
So then I decided to take that opportunity of speaking and to speak as much as possible. So I rarely say no to speaking opportunities, just because I hope that there would be someone in the audience that would see me and then say, yeah, I can go to cybersecurity. Yeah, I can be a CEO. I can do all of those things because I've seen other women do that. So yeah, I try to create that path for other women to walk in.
We've talked a lot about the importance of culture, the human side, empathy, and also you have a very positive outlook, even in difficulty. So I imagine that a lot of this has been shaped by adversity. And what was the first major thing? We'll go as young as you want. The first, real sense of adversity shaping you and creating how you react to it. Because the way that you approach things now, and even when you talk about difficult situations, that's definitely shaped by years of learning. So I'm curious where that came from.
I'm trying to think where it all started. I'm not sure, but first of all, my grandfather was a very influential figure in the family. He was a basketball coach, a volleyball coach, back in the days when Israel was a very, very young country. Obviously, there was nothing here. There was mostly sand, and he looked at sports as a way to influence people. He would, for example, he would have kids who were very talented at basketball but didn't want to go to school. So he would tell them, listen, if you don't get better in your studies, I will not allow you to play basketball on the team. So he was there. He was later on the coach of the Israeli team to the Olympics and so on. So people remembered him, until the day he died at 94. People remembered him and came to talk to him because they remembered him from elementary school. So he was a very influential person, in my opinion, about giving to other people and using your power to empower others. During high school, I was taking a part in a young leadership program. Today we can call it social entrepreneurship, but then we didn't really use that term.
Right.
Every high school, every participant in the program had to create their own impactful social project. And my project was to help underprivileged kids that lived in a specific very bad neighborhood. During elementary school, the Ministry of Education would already know that these kids are not going to graduate from high school.
Wow.
They're 6, 7, 8, 10 years old. They already give up on you. These kids, they come from a very difficult background. Their parents immigrated. They don't speak Hebrew. They can't help them with homework. They're usually very hardworking. They're never at home. So my project was, again, talk about, your impact or your influence. Just like my mentorship program, I knew that, if I would, help 1 or 2 kids, this is nothing. I need to help 20, 30, 40. So I created a big brother, big sister project. I recruited high school students that were then joined with another kid, and they were their big brother and sister. They would help them with homework. They would teach them basic stuff that you expect the parents to teach, like how to take the bus, how to pay for a slice of pizza and get the change. Really basic stuff that they didn't do. No
Right.
one did it with them. So that was probably one of the most impactful experiences that I had, because again, I was also a high school student, right? So I recruited my peers, by the way, from a different high school, not from my high school, so that they would be closer to that neighborhood. I did some fundraising. I wanted, to have a fun event and have T-shirts and have snacks. So I looked for donations. And I was so surprised when people gave me like $200, $300 for, like, they don't know me, and I'm not. It's not like I'm representing an official organization. This is just me trying to do something nice. But yeah, this is how it happened. And this is how I learned that really all you have to do is open your mouth, is speak up. I just sat at a meeting in the school, talked to the principal, told them that this is what I want to do. And they gave me a go for this. You have to speak up.
It's it is amazing, but it's so funny that it's more people don't than do. And I think that's why it's very important that, we share those stories and you do that. And thank you for doing that. It's, the world is better for folks, we need more Shiras in the world who can do this, because, if people can learn from this and be inspired by it and just ask a thing, right? And I've had this all the time too. Like, how did I start a podcast? How did I start a blog? How did I get the job of the company? There's a point where I would say, like, well, no one seems to be asking. So I'm going to ask a weird question here, but I was a contractor at an organization that I was at, and I went to my manager, who's signs my timesheets, has no responsibility to me other than signing my timesheets, but we got along. And I said, hey, I see there's a job open on the server team. Like, is there any way that, like, I know I'm on a contract, but what do you do? And he says, it's funny. No one has ever asked that before. And then when I went to, another job and I got the job, and, somebody else had a similar situation come up where they were on contract with me, and they were like, "I don't understand. Like, how did you get the job?" I said, I just went to Wayne and I asked him. and so I coached that person, and they went to Wayne and they became my peer in the server team. And so, like, but and that's what it is, right? The first person that jumps in the pool that lets you know that the water's okay.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's beautiful when you can be that person. And it's even more amazing when you watch how many people can take that capability that they saw and then bring it into themselves, and carry themselves forward, and raise themselves up.
Yep, absolutely. Really, all you have to do is open your mouth, because you already have the no. But how about if someone is going to say yes? You have to try it out.
I know we don't have much time left, and I wish I could steal more time. I'm going to have you, I'd love to have you back, because you said the word fundraising, and I know we talked at the very start, and I don't want to try and squeeze that into 5 minutes, because it's a really good discussion I would love to have. Raising money in what most people would think is the most difficult time to do so, in many decades, in the world, but also probably the exact right time to do that for a variety of reasons as well. That's a real interesting challenge. But so, Shira, if you had a thing that you would tell people to do to make today better than yesterday for themselves, what's sort of a thing that when someone says, I need to make myself better, what's that first thing that comes to your mind if you think of what they can do for themselves?
Don't wait for anyone to tell you how to get better or how to help yourself. This is really up to you to decide how to shape your life. Then just go ahead and do it. Be it, a new job, learn something new. I don't know, find a wife or a husband, buy an apartment. Don't wait for anyone to tell you what is right and what is wrong. Make a decision and then follow it. And mainly, don't stop learning all the time. Never ends.
That's amazing. Well, thank you very much for spending the time today. And for folks I wish I could have spent more time talking. I'd actually like to dive, like I said, deeper into the technology, and into the sort of funding story. We'll catch up again. I know people would like to hear that. And for anybody that does want to find out more, of course, they can go to Solvo, SOLVO.cloud. Easy way to find you. I'll have links in the show notes. And if they wanted to reach out and get in contact with you, Shira, what's the best way to do so?
LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm very available. Just ping me, DM me, text me. I'm there.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for spending the time today. And like I said, it's been a real pleasure. I feel inspired. I'm going to do good things this afternoon, and I'm going to find somebody else and help them do good things, because I think that's the best we can do for the world.
Then my job here is done. Thank you so much.